These are 8 horrifying facts that will probably keep you up at night. There's a 1 in 3 chance police will never identify your killer if you were murdered in the United States. If the sun exploded now, you wouldn't know about it for another 8 minutes. 20% of children report hearing voices. There are 40 supervolcanoes around the world, capable of claiming 1 billion lives. And we are about 24,000 years overdue for an eruption. The air you breathe in train stations is 15% human skin. There are over 200 dead bodies on top of Mount Everest, because retrieving them is such a risk. They serve as markers for other hikers. When you die, your house cat is going to want to eat you. Speaking of pets, dogs like squeaky toys because they mimic the screams of their prey. Yeah, there's a lot more. Like for part 2. These are 8 horrifying facts that will probably keep you up at night. The pacu fish from South America has human-like teeth. There's a haunted Russian radio station. It's a low-frequency radio station that's been broadcasting since 1982, and no one knows where the broadcast is originating. When you die, your hearing is the last sense you lose. Speaking of death, finally, the death outnumber the living, 15 to 1. You swallow 1 to 2 cups of mucus every day. Pine trees can grow in human lungs. A man once went into surgery to remove what doctors thought was a tumor, but it was a pine tree growing in his lungs. There was a chicken called Mike the Headless Chicken. He lived for 18 months after its head was cut off. In 1800s, dentures were made out of the real teeth of deceased people. Yeah, with 1 dentist visit, you would have been eating with a dead man's teeth for the rest of your life. Like for part 3. These are 8 horrifying facts that will probably keep you up at night. Being buried alive accidentally occurred so often that people invented safety coffins. In the Middle Ages, people used to eat mummies for medical purposes. It's the main reason we don't have a lot of mummies left today. In the United States, there are more vacant homes than homeless people. Did you know that the actress Glenn Close was raised in a cult? The Pirates of the Caribbean ride at Disneyland used to have real skeletons as props. In 1976, a TV crew realized one of the hanging bodies in the Laugh in the Dark ride was indeed a real body by accidentally breaking it. Women in the 18th century used lead as makeup. This is the first chainsaw. It was invented by 2 Scottish doctors. And it was invented for childbirth. Yeah, there's a lot more. Like for part 4.
Movies that keep you on the edge of your seat, part 1. 2 girls go missing. The suspect in custody knows something, but he isn't saying anything, and the father knows it. What seems like a bad decision being made by the dad has one heck of a twist when the kidnapper is discovered. If you love movies that you have to watch every second of to catch the killer, all while trying to throw you off the trail, then you'll love this movie. What movie is it? Prisoners, and it's a 10 out of 10. Stalkers caught on camera. While taking a walk, they noticed something strange. 2 masked men is following them. At first they thought that it was just a couple of friends pranking them, but soon realized they was wrong. She should have locked the door. 9:30 and Janet is getting home to her cozy apartment. She steps up to the door, she turns the knob and enters her home, locks the door behind her without ever thinking she didn't have to unlock it to get in. Her boyfriend calls, so she's walking around the house not paying any attention. Grabs a glass, she heads over to the sink and turns on the water to fill her cup. And that's when she looks up at the window and noticed something in the reflection that drained the life from her body. Behind her, under the bed in her room, was a man hiding, and now he's between her and the front door. Not trying to let the man know that she's seen him, she tells her boyfriend, "I'm going to take a shower," locks the door, turns on the water, and jumps out the window. She runs to the neighbor's house and calls 911. They go inside, they bring out a tall, pale man with blood on his clothes. The officer looks over at the girl and says she's very lucky. When they got in there, he was standing outside the bedroom door holding a kitchen knife. Ever go to the old Curberton Mansion? In 1933, Dr. Webb and his family moved into the old Curberton Mansion in Indiana. The mansion was known for its hauntings, but for some sinister reason, Dr. Webb didn't care. The family was then found a year later, appearing to have been tortured and beaten, but there was 0 signs of forced entry. But it's what was discovered in the basement that makes me believe that evil spirits was involved. Dr. Webb had a dark side. He would take his patients to the basement, promising a cure for their chronic illness, then tie them up and experiment on them. Several died, leading to the idea that maybe the disgruntled spirits were the cause of the family's death. Never go down Evangeline Road, Louisiana. 2015, a group of urban explorers go searching for a local legend. This creature is said to be the spawn from a satanic ritual performed by a group of outcast circus performers in the late 1900s. They were deep in the woods and night was fast approaching, so they decided to set up camp. But it's what happened when one of the explorers went to pee that sent shivers down my spine. It was way darker than normal that night. The man walked about 10 feet from the fire and behind a tree. But when he turned around to go back to camp, everyone was gone, and the woods was completely silent. He called up a friend to tell him what had happened so that if he doesn't come back, someone would know why. When the rangers got to the campsite, the scene was horrific. Blood and body parts were everywhere. What happened to the explorers, and why didn't he tell his friend that the others were dead? Never pick up hitchhikers. Driving home from a party one dark and foggy night, a group of friends saw a figure waving frantically to help on the side of the road. They stopped and they offered the woman a ride, but as they drove, she revealed that she was a ghost seeking revenge for a hit-and-run accident that killed her on that very highway. The group listened in horror as the car shook and the engine sputtered to a stop, and they would never be seen again. Legend has it that the ghostly woman still haunts that road, waiting for her next victim. Never pick up hitchhikers. Driving home from a party one dark and foggy night, a group of friends saw a figure waving frantically to help on the side of the road. They stopped and they offered the woman a ride, but as they drove, she revealed that she was a ghost seeking revenge for a hit-and-run accident that killed her on that very highway. The group listened in horror as the car shook and the engine sputtered to a stop, and they would never be seen again. Legend has it that the ghostly woman still haunts that road, waiting for her next victim. What to watch? Two friends, one's getting married and the other one is messing everything up,
It's the ring essential.
leading to an adventure that will have you both laughing out loud and yelling at your screen.
You can't know better when I got 200,000 pounds of cocaine strapped to my chest.
And you can find it in the link in my bio or the comment section.
This is a true horrifying story, part 26. In part 25, I spoke about the risks behind the most dangerous book, Shams al-Ma'arif. This is your final warning. Do not buy this book, do not read this book. Many viewers have asked me, why have I said the book's name? As a content creator and a true storyteller, I cannot provide information without a solid reference. And for those who doubt the information that was shared about this book, Mu'min Abu Mecca confirmed my video and confirmed the dangers behind this book. He also shared a story about the book himself, and he warned his viewers not to go anywhere near it. This story took place in Egypt in the year 2013. Kuwaiti man was intrigued about this book. He never had interest to practice black magic, but he wanted to study the book. He met someone online that has original copies of this book located in Alexandria, Egypt. He flew to Egypt the same week and met with the man selling the book. He purchased the book and he extended his stay for a whole week to finish it. He wanted to study it in Egypt and then get rid of it before he flies back to Kuwait. On the first night, he read a big chunk of the book and he went through some rituals but couldn't feel anything. He closed the book and went to bed. The feeling was very off in his hotel room. Kinda felt like someone was laying next to him on bed. The man wakes up, has breakfast, and continues reading the book. Out of nowhere, things in the bedroom would start to tip over and move. His spine started to shiver. He immediately decides that the time is up. He got an answer that was real. He called the man that he got the book from, and he told him, "Keep the money I gave you, but just take the book back." He drove to that man with the book. He handed the book over to him and he drove back to his hotel. He stayed in Egypt for a couple more days and then flew back to Kuwait. When he reached home to Kuwait, he started unpacking his bag. He finds the book, Shams al-Ma'arif, inside his suitcase. The same book he was reading in Egypt. The man was certain that he only took one copy and he returned that one copy back. But once you tie yourself around rituals inside this book, the presence within this book will never let you go. The dangers this book holds cannot be undone without religious cleansing. This man suffered horrific experiences for a whole year because he read the book. Not only read the book, but he also practiced the rituals and he did not complete it. Stay away from Shams al-Ma'arif. This is a true horrifying story, part 27. In part 25 and 26, I warned you guys about the most dangerous book that was ever written. A man that goes by the name Samar al-Ruhani practices black magic. And he learned how to get in touch with the world of jinns using the book Shams al-Ma'arif. On his early days, he was practicing rituals by reading verses from this book. And the verses from this book made objects move around in directions ordered by him. Now, I thought the video was fake, but I've dug up a little research about this man and I confirmed that he is indeed a person that practices black magic. By reading or listening to these verses, you might open doors that are very hard to close. So stay away from this book. Now, I will have the video played on mute because it's very dangerous to have the words spoken or listened to from your phone speaker. I will publish part 28 very soon, and I will tell you guys about the dangers of another book that people have mentioned in my comments. Based on some research I've done, people call it more dangerous than Shams al-Ma'arif. So stay tuned. This is a true horrifying story, part 28. In parts 25, 26, and 27, I warned you all about a dangerous book that opens doors to the world of jinns named Shams al-Ma'arif. And in part 27, I told you that there's another book that goes way beyond Shams al-Ma'arif. The book I will talk about was written way before Shams al-Ma'arif. The author of Shams al-Ma'arif had to derive and learn from this book in the first place. It is the first manual for black magic that was ever written. This book is called Kitab al-Ghazali, written by Abu Hamid al-Ghazali in the 11th century. Many religious scholars say that Imam al-Ghazali was not the author of this book, but no one is 100% sure about who the author is till this day. The difference between al-Ghazali and Shams al-Ma'arif is that Shams al-Ma'arif is more technical. Many chapters teach readers all sorts of different rituals and how each ritual works. Al-Ghazali, on the other hand, is a small book that is one ritual from the start to finish. It is so dangerous, I have seen imams putting on gloves while touching this book. If you read this book, you will tie yourself around a ritual that puts you in contact with the world of jinns until the day you die. Al-Ghazali is a very lethal book. Now, I don't have to warn you guys about reading it, because you won't find it, and because no original copy exists anywhere. There's a bunch of rip-off PDFs online that claim to be the original copies, but I doubt it. Ancient governments have burned copies of this book, and with the very few copies of this book left in the world, whoever puts it up online, it usually gets taken down. This shows you the difference between these two books. One of the copies left is known to be somewhere in Oman, and the person that owns it is an old man that sells black magic services. The jinns that he's in contact with are a few of the most powerful jinns in their world. People would go to him, pay him money so he can cast spells on people they despise, and he would cause unspeakable harm to people by using black magic. All this man needs to harm you is a piece of your DNA. It could be a swab of your spit, a tissue that you used, a piece of your hair, or even a picture of you. Only a few people living among us today have the capability of causing such harm to others. And they're the ones that passionately tied themselves around books such as Al-Ghazali. We might see these characters in movies, but I assure you that these people do exist. The Book of God always destroys black magic, but it's never that easy. A'udhu billah. If you ever came across an ancient book that reads Al-Ghazali, do not touch it. Only by touching it, you might lure jinns closer to you for a very long time. This is a true horrifying story, part 29. This is an old famous story known as The Boy and the Jinn. This story took place in Nottingham, England in the early 90s. There is a massive abandoned building that has 120 rooms, many dorms, and very big halls. the building was bought to start an Islamic madrasa, meaning school for boys. They renovated the place and scheduled classes. When the school started, all the students were warned and restricted from accessing the west side of the building. No reasons given, just no one is allowed to go to the west side of the school. One of the students, let's give him a name. His name is Imran. Imran was 13 years old at the time, and he's from Bangladesh. He does not speak a word of English nor Arabic. The only language Imran spoke was Bengali. Imran was a quiet kid. He didn't have any friends. He always walked alone, sleeps alone, and eats alone. One day, Imran strays off to the west side of the building on his own, the side that he was restricted from accessing. He comes back after a while with a Quran in his hand. He goes to the Quran teacher and tells him, "Test me in Arabic." Remember, he does not speak a word in any other language but Bengali. The teacher laughs it off and starts to test him out. Verse after verse, he realizes that this student memorized the whole Quran efficiently, and everyone was extremely shocked about this. On that same night, all the students head to their dorms and go to sleep. During the middle of the night, they bang the principal's room, screaming, "There's a jinn, there's a jinn." The principal found out that while the students were asleep, the walls in their dorm would bang and scratch, and there will be voices coming out the walls saying the name Imran. Then it all added up. They figured out that Imran was possessed by a jinn that was a hafiz of the Quran. So an Islamic exorcism wouldn't really do much. The sheikh would put his hand on Imran and recite the ayat, but the jinn would come back with the following verse to break the exorcism. The ruqya cannot work on a jinn that memorized the Quran. And the jinn himself is challenging the raqi on who knows the Quran better. One of the imams that witnessed this whole situation asked to send Imran back home for 1 month, and that should treat his situation. They send him home. He comes back after 1 month, not knowing any Arabic, not knowing any English, doesn't know anything about the Quran, the same old quiet kid. And no one ever dared going near the west side of the building after what happened to Imran.
This is a true horrifying story, part 30. This story took place in Medina, Saudi Arabia in the year 2001. And the person who said this story is Dr. Yasir Qadhi. He's someone that is known in the community of the Islamic da'iyas. There are exorcists from all religions, Muslims, Christians, and Jewish. And their job is to perform an exorcism session on a person who is possessed by a demon or a jinn. When Dr. Yasir was a student, he studied in Medina. There was a known exorcist that practiced ruqya for many years, and Dr. Yasir wanted to learn from him. Back at the dorm of the Islamic college, there was a student that is a fresh convert, just recently converted to Islam. He barely knows anything about the religion, small bits of the Quran, does not know the ahadith, and doesn't know the big scholars in Islam. One day, the students were reading Quran out loud back at the dorm, and this new convert student starts to scream and roll on the ground. They knew he was possessed, so they called Dr. Yasir. Now remember, Dr. Yasir was still a student back then. He was not an expert in exorcism. He goes there and has a 2-hour session of ruqya, the ruqya that he recently learned, trying to kick out the demon out of this kid's body. As he reads Quran, he would see an alien-like movement on the kid's body. His skin would ripple up and down. A human being cannot do this intentionally. He would follow the movement with his hands reading the Quran, and you would see it move somewhere else. After the session was over, the kid looked fine, and they got lunch for everyone to eat. They say Bismillah, and they ask the new convert to join them for lunch. He said, "I'm not hungry, it's okay." As they were eating, one of the students drops a piece of his food on the ground and ignores it. The convert student immediately jumps like a snake, picks it up and gobbles it down with his left hand. Dr. Yasir lets the food go and gets up, knowing that this kid is still possessed. He tries to intimidate this demon by shouting, "I'm gonna bring Sheikh bin Uthaymeen to read on you." Now Sheikh bin Uthaymeen is a huge Islamic scholar, and he passed away around that time in January 2001. This kid laughs hysterically with a raspy demonic voice. He gets up and he asks, "Are you going to bring him back from the dead?" This is when they all realize that this wasn't a human entity that spoke. How can this new convert know who Sheikh bin Uthaymeen is? And why would he say he's not hungry but ate food that dropped on the ground? And how was his skin rippling? Jinns can harm you, And the harm is tangible. This is not a joke. Being possessed is very, very real. Even to exorcists, it's very dangerous, and only people with very strong faith can do it. This is a true horrifying story, part 31. This story was submitted by Faisal bin Salah. My name is Faisal bin Salah. I'm 34 years old and I've been married for 12 years. We have 2 daughters. One is 5 years old and the other one is 10 months old. I set up a company in a free zone, so we stayed in Dubai for 2 months, from July to September. We stayed at a 1-bedroom apartment at Hayat Regency, Dubai Creek. It all started from day one with very strange things happening. My wife woke up one morning with brown spots on her hand. It's believed to be a sign that someone attempted to make sihr, but it has failed. I told my wife that it must be something else, do not worry. But she was very convinced, because we both witnessed the lights turning on and off on random nights. And these were signs that we believed that had to do with jinns or black magic. On that same night, I started growling very loud. I got up, jumped from one side of the room to the other, where my wife was still on her prayer rug, and I strangled my wife. She immediately realized what was going on and she started yelling Ayat al-Kursi. While she was reading Ayat al-Kursi, I lost the strength in my hands, and then I started gaining consciousness. We went to the other side of the apartment and I told her, quiet, quiet. Why are you yelling? We're waking everyone up. She didn't believe who I was at that state that I was in. She panicked and she told me what happened in the bedroom. I needed some time to realize what has happened as well. The next day, I called my mother. She knows a lot about Islam, and she said that we had to leave that apartment immediately. Around 8 p.m. on that same day, I told my wife that I'll be going shopping. She said, the girls and I are gonna come with you. We're not staying here alone. We all left the house together, and we got back around 10 p.m. We came back and saw all the lights off. But we remembered that we kept them on, cause we left it with the key card in the slot. When we turned the lights on, all hell broke loose. The kitchen cabinets were swinging front and back, all the dishes and glasses were being thrown. It was very loud, scary, and traumatizing to look at. We quickly run downstairs, report this incident to the manager, and we ask for our money back. We called the manager upstairs to witness the situation, and he believed his own eyes, because he was a Muslim as well. The apartment was wrecked and the doors were still slamming front and back. We then moved to another apartment in Palm Jumeirah. A month later, I was sitting on the couch scrolling through my phone. My wife came up to me at 3 a.m. and she told me, do you know what Sophia just said in her sleep? Sophia is the 5-year-old daughter. She said boiling water in a Moroccan dialect. Sophia only spoke Dutch and English. That was a warning not to go back again. This is a true horrifying story, part 32. In parts 25, 26, and 27, I warned you all about the most dangerous book that was ever written, Shams al-Ma'arif. This book is a portal to the world of jinns and demons. There's a person that read this book, and this person faces traumatic incidents every single day. She's a woman from Jordan. She graduated university being the top graded student. She is a genius. She has read hundreds of novels. She had a strong passion for books. She heard about this book called Shams al-Ma'arif. She couldn't live knowing that there's a book that has a strong story behind it without reading it. After many months of trying to find the real copy of this book, she heard about an old man that lives in Jordan that had an ancient copy of Shams al-Ma'arif. She got in touch with him and he refused to sell the book, but she didn't quit. It took her many weeks to finally buy the book off of him. She goes back home and immediately starts reading the book. After she read the first few chapters of the book, she felt kinda hungry, so she decided to go to the kitchen and prepare some food and then continue reading. As she goes into the kitchen, she opens the oven and a gale of fire burns her face. She spent 3 weeks in the burn unit rehabilitation. The oven was switched off. No one knows till this day where the flames came from. She had multiple plastic surgeries to recover her facial features, but till this day, her face is not what it used to be. After recovery, she goes home weeks later and she looks for the book, knowing that the jinn was the reason she was harmed. She tried to find the book for many days, but it was lost. Years go by. She was home watching TV one day. She came across an Islamic channel that had a live interview program. An old man was being interviewed on this channel. He was asked by the imams about the dangers of a black magic book that he owns. His body was very unusual and his face was burned off. He got a book from under the table and he said this,
I once sold this book to a young woman a long time ago, and the demons warned me not to stop my rituals, and if I gave the book away, they would burn my face and they would burn hers. And after I gave the book, I woke up the next day without my normal face. And the book I sold to that woman was right there laying next to me on bed. I knew that it was the jinns that brought the book back to me. And this is when I strengthened my iman and I quit black magic. Quote, this was all said on TV, and the poor girl was just standing there, watching the same man speak. The man on TV was the man that gave her the book. The book he showed on TV was the book he handed to her. That was the book that was lost. The book that she was looking for.
This is a true horrifying story, part 33. This special episode does not necessarily tell you a story, but it will explain more in depth about the world of jinns. Many of my viewers are non-Muslims, and they get an idea of what a jinn is, but not in depth. Jinns are paranormal beings. In other religions, they are known as demons or devils. Iblis is the father of all jinns. He's also known as Lucifer. They lived on earth way before humans did. They were known to shed blood and chaos before humans existed. They still exist and live with us, but they're in another dimension that corresponds to our physical world. There are many types of jinns. Just like in Christianity, there are types of demons. There are good jinns and there are bad jinns, which are the disbelievers. In Islam, we call them shaitans. In other words, Satans. Jinns can see us, but we cannot see them. We can only see the shape-shifting jinns in physical form, when they shape-shift into certain types of animals or human form. There are Muslim jinns, there are Christian jinns, Jewish, Hindu, Buddhists, and also atheists. There are young ones and there are old ones. There are males and there are females. Jinns reproduce just like any other creature on earth, but their world is a different type of science. It's far beyond the science that we know of. Jinns can only come in close contact with humans through portals. Not any jinn can harm you. Not any jinn can haunt you. Only the ones that are capable of coming through these portals. But what are these portals? Black magic is one kind of portal, like the books and the rituals I explained in my previous parts. And mirrors are also known to be lethal portals. And yes, jinns can possess and harm human beings, but only people with weak souls and weak faith are the ones who are prone to getting possessed. And only exorcists can treat such circumstances. All these horror movies that we watch, with all these scary scenes, all these scenes can very much happen to some extent from jinns. However, good jinns don't harm humans. They can actually save you from being harmed in many ways. But unfortunately, the evil jinns outnumber the good jinns. There are more demons around us than good souls in their dimension. It's because Iblis, Lucifer, their father, is not a good jinn. These beings have been mentioned in all religions. These beings are very real. They do exist.
What to watch? Two friends, one's getting married and the other one is messing everything up,
It's the Ring Essential.
leading to an adventure that will have you both laughing out loud and yelling at your screen.
You call me a little better when I got 200,000 pounds of cocaine strapped to my testicle.
And you can find it in the link in my bio or the comment section. Never do what he did. 2018, John and Mary thought it would be funny to scare Mary's little sister. Little did they know that it would be them they would scare. Halloween night, John pulls up to Mary's house. Her and her 13-year-old sister Debbie jumps in the car and they take off. John turns down Nash Road and immediately Debbie asks, "Why are we on this road?" John stops the car and turns off the lights, honks the horn 3 times, all while Debbie's screaming in the back, "No." That's when they heard a loud bang on the roof. John turns on the light and they see her, a ghostly apparition with a twisted body, glowing eyes, and 3 legs. Scared, John speeds off, the 3-legged lady banging on the car the whole time as they race to the end of the road, barely getting away. Don't let the hag ride you. Sam Watson was always tired, but when he found out why, he was terrified. He just couldn't live like this anymore. So he had an idea to set up a camera in his room so that he could see if he was sleepwalking or waking up in the middle of the night without realizing it. He turns on the camera and lays down for the night. The next day, he wakes up tired as usual and goes to the camera and turns it on. At first, nothing was out of the ordinary, but then he noticed a shadow forming on the wall behind him. It grew larger and took a human-like shape. He watched as it crawled up his body and then sat on his chest, sucking the breath from him little by little. Never go to the Alaskan Triangle. In 1972, U.S. House Majority Leader Hal Boggs boards a Cessna 310 plane and sets off on a campaign trail. Little did he know what was about to happen. As the plane crosses a well-known hotspot in Alaska, it just disappears. No mayday, no sign of trouble. It's just gone. 59 civilian planes, 40 military aircraft, and a search radius of 325,000 square miles, and they found nothing. No sign of wreckage, no survivors. 4 in every 1,000 people that go into this area disappear. Never go to the Great Dismal Swamp. Several years ago, a park employee was traveling the roads of the Washington Ditch Trail when she comes upon a couple dressed in colonial clothing. Believing that they were dressed up for some costume party and had gotten lost in the area swamps, she pulls over, rolls down her window, and asks if they needed help. But she receives zero response. Her dog is frantically barking from the passenger side. She looks over for a split second to hush her pet, and then when she looks back, the couple is gone. 3 a.m. thoughts. We have all heard of how many people go missing in our state parks, but have you seen how close the locations are to the cave system? What is in these caves that we don't know about? Never go into the Manistee National Park alone. 5 years ago, U.S. Army veteran Joe Barger was hauling a load of paper through the Manistee Forest when he notices he's losing air. But while fixing the leak, he starts to get a very uneasy feeling, and he hears strange noises coming from the woods next to him. He looks over and sees large shadows just at the edge of the tree line. He jumps back in his truck, looks left and makes sure that no traffic is coming, and then takes off. He looks over to the right passenger mirror and he can see nothing, just black. That's when he notices a creature at least 10 feet tall looking down into the cab of his truck. It had yellow eyes and teeth at least 3 inches long, and it was there for one reason. Joe is frozen. He's never seen or heard of anything like this. He picks up his gun, aims, and shoots. Wanting to make sure that it was dead and that he wasn't crazy, he finds a spot to turn around, but all he saw when he came back was flattened grass and a wide mark dragged out into the woods. Go to Fouke, Arkansas. Bobby Ford and 3 friends were hanging out at his home when something scary happened. His back door swung open, and what they saw next was nothing short of terrifying. A massive creature with thick fur and sharp claws stood outside his home. The men chased after it, leading Bobby to be injured and barely getting away. He visits Texarkana Hospital, and his story is posted in the Texarkana Gazette. The legend of the Boggy Creek Monster is formed. Never go to Fort Mountain, Georgia. 2 young men set out to visit historic Fort Mountain when something tragic happened. While taking a photo of his buddy, one of the boys was so scared of what he saw that he had a heart attack and died at the hospital 2 days later. When the surviving friend later took the photos to be developed, what he saw was horrifying. An entity standing next to him as his buddy snapped the shot. Whatever you do, never knock on this bridge in Texas. Oscar Washburn was an African-American goat herder known for his quality of farm goods. But his success angered the local clan, so they made a plan to take care of the goat herder. Late one night, they stormed his homestead with pitchforks and torches, and they drug Oscar out of his house. As the mob gets closer to the bridge, Oscar notices something that makes him realize that he's not going home. A rope hanging from the bridge. Up the hill and on top of the bridge they go. They put the rope around his neck and push. Off Oscar went. After a few minutes of laughing, they go to see the man that they just hung, and his body is nowhere to be seen. Legend states that if you go to that bridge and you knock 3 times on the trusses at midnight, a creature so hideous will appear that it could only be the spawn of something vengeful. Red glowing eyes, a goat-like head and feet, and carrying the heads of its victims. Disturbing things caught on camera. A group of teens are playing catch when they notice something strange in the building above them. Ghost caught on camera. She was sitting on her couch when she noticed something strange in the reflection of her TV. She picks up her phone to record that nobody is sitting next to her, but then this happened. Bloody Bucket Bridge, Florida. This legend starts during the Civil War. A local slave lady gives birth to a beautiful baby boy. Moments later, the townspeople rush in her home, rip the child from her arms, and then out the door they go. There she laid, bloodied, with tears pouring down her face, promising herself that she would get them back. Fast forward a couple of years and she is appointed the town's midwife, but what she does next is horrifying. She would suffocate every child and tell the mom they were stillborn, and throw their remains in a bucket, and she would then go onto the local bridge and dispose of them. If you go onto that bridge on a full moon night, the water is running blood red, and the cries will haunt you.